Welcome to Weld.com. We've had several requests about how to cut thicker material. So, a lot of times I've started out and I've demonstrated some things with the smaller super range torch. I like them for detail. They're lightweight, easy to manipulate, even cut in circles. We've got a circle burning guide up here that we've made for manipulating, cutting arcs and circles and stuff. And I like this for detail. But when we get into heavier material, some heavier stock, I like to go ahead and grab the Journeyman. A little bit better preheat, bigger tips, not necessarily bigger cut capacity. So I went and grabbed one of my tips from my home shop, and I know it's mine because I engraved my name in here. The ones that we use here in the shop, various sizes, all the same. They're all Victor tips. Now this tip is a double aught, and I have my pressure set at 5 and 20, and I should get a sufficient burn. Light this up where it doesn't have any soot to it. Slowly ease the oxygen on. That's a good neutral flame right there. I can see the oxygen jet concentrated through the preheat flames. I can hear that ripping sound. That's a good condition. If I change to a larger tip, I don't expect to get that big long burn out of there, but I still should have a clean tip where I've got the oxygen shooting through the preheat flame. It should be concentrated. Anytime you put a tip in a torch and you light it up and get a neutral flame and you hit the oxygen lever, some of you will attest to this, your flame gets real short. As soon as you pull the oxygen lever, your preheat's out here, and then you pull the oxygen lever and your flame gets real short. You have turbulence. You have what we call a bad tip condition in here, not necessarily in your preheat flames, it's in your oxygen jet. You may have a speck of mill scale or something right here, and really all you got to do is, I'll take mine from time to time and I'll clean them off with a mill file. I'll turn a little bit of oxygen on and just clean this face off. There's also seating tool, or not seating tools, but there's also a tool that slips over this taper that you can kind of spin this and face this off. And then I'll take and simply run a wire through the hole a couple times to clean that. So that when I have my preheat burning and I get ready to cut and I press the oxygen lever, it shouldn't get any shorter. The bigger tips aren't going to burn out so far. I do believe that one needs to be cleaned. Although I can still see the oxygen jet through here, I'm not too often concerned with it. Also, I could probably step over here and do myself justice and turn this oxygen pressure up to 25, 30. I'll go up in acetylene pressure to 6. So I'm at 6. Oh, there we go, that's better. And that's about how a number 1 tip is going to look. When I get into thicker material yet, I'll go to a number 2 tip. If I'm going to cut 1.5 inches by hand, or even inch, if I want to make some time on it, I'll go with a number 2 tip by hand. Number 2. I'm one to kind of follow the charts. I'll set the oxygen pressure up on a number 2 tip to about 7 or 8 on the acetylene pressure, and I'll go to 45. I have seen some people that really jack that pressure up real high, like 70 psi. I'm going to go ahead and turn this up to 7 on the acetylene. And I'll go to 55 on the oxygen pressure and see what kind of a burn we get on this. Neutral flame, a lot of preheat, but I can still see that oxygen jet running through there pretty straight. So, I'm going to stay with those pressures, and I'm going to do a couple of sample cuts here on some materials. This is going to be 3/4 inch thick material. Let me get my gear on, I'll be right back. Welcome back. I have a piece of cold. Yep, it's cold. I just brought it in from outside. The wind's blowing. It's 32 degrees out there. 3/4 inch steel. I'm going to use a number 2 tip. I have marked some lines on here like I'm going to cut for like a big lifting lug or something, but I'm going to lop these corners off. And then the next thing I'm going to do is take it over off camera and do a bevel on a track torch with a number 1 tip. And I'm going to come back and see if I can't duplicate the bevel by hand. I use a burn bar. I've had this thing forever. Matter of fact, I have a bunch of them. And it's simply a guide that I use. This thing is pretty heavy. It's a piece of 1/4 inch by 3x3 angle iron. I don't have plans for it. People have contacted me and say, do you have the drawings and the plans and all that stuff? Man, I kind of put together tools here. It's flat on the bottom. I've angled my handle up so that I can manipulate it. It has a piece of 1.5 inch square stock by 5/16 or so, 3/8. And then I did take it over the machine shop and have them fly cut it so that it's super smooth. And I also have a slight chamfer on here that's about 1/8 of an inch. And I keep it smooth, and it says instructor only on it because I don't want anybody using it. They tend to ding it up. There's nothing worse for me to get cutting along and all of a sudden run into a big old chip or something where somebody used it as a hammer. Don't like that. In any event, I've cut a lot of bevels. I've cut a lot of beams, detailed beams. I'll make these in various sizes so I can get down inside beams and just whatever needs to happen. But I use it as a straight edge, okay? So that I can cut one-handed and just kind of glide across this thing. Let's see if I can get a decent cut going. I have a number 2 tip in here because this is cold stock. I am going to warm it up a little bit, but I'm going to oversize the tip, try to get a smooth cut. Cut number 1, what I'm looking for is fairly smooth lines, not an appreciable amount of slag on bottom. I need to slow down just a little bit. We'll make cut number 2. I think I want to turn myself about like that so the old camera guy over here can get me. I set these up here where they're about 3/16 away because as this tip is resting on the fly cut edge here, it puts me right in the center. Actually, it's less than that. It's about 1/8 of an inch. Different sizes of tips will get you different. There we go. I used to do some layout lines with scribes, real fine scribe line, and I would actually line up one of the preheat flames right on top of the scribe mark, which puts the oxygen jet right on the, pretty much right on the edge of that scribe line, and then make the cut dimensionally extremely close to what I needed. So you cut just barely outside the line and leave yourself enough room to clean your slag. I'm going to go with a more aggressive preheat flame here and see what happens. I like the first cut a little better. Again, I haven't done any cutting with a great big tip, number 2 tip, number 3 tip in a long time. I want to step over on camera because people have asked, how do you bevel up some pretty heavy stuff? I'm going to go over on camera and cut a bevel across this thing on a track torch, and then I'm going to come back and show you the results. And then I want to see if I can duplicate it by hand. Be right back. I'm going to bevel a piece of 3/4 inch stock here. Get a good neutral flame. Good tip condition. What may happen here as I go across there, see that mill scale popping up off of there. And it's like a phenomenon, but that mill scale pops and gets right in your oxygen orifice and makes a bad cut condition. So I'm going to recheck that before I cut. Bevels are somewhat difficult in that travel speed is critical. I like to start out a little slow, ease into this, and increase the speed when I'm on a track torch. A bad cut would be too fast a travel speed, and it'll start chipping and washing and gouging, and you call it gator toothing or whatever you want to call it. And that liquid coming off of there and leaning forward, it doesn't get any better than that in my view. That is a beautiful condition right there. Some of you have heard kind of a whistle, a chirping effect when you're cutting. That is also a really good condition. So we have a good smooth face. No slag on the bottom side. We're good to go. That'll easily clean up within seconds. Okay, I went over and I made a cut and I explained kind of what's going on with speed and whatnot with pressures. I dressed this corner up over here, my original hand cut when I lopped off the corner, and I went ahead and left the drag lines in there. The whole point I'm making is I just touched it with a grinder to kind of hit the face. I took the mill scale off here. It didn't do anything to the bottom. Neither one of these had appreciable amounts of slag hanging onto them, and that's what I want when I make a cut. I don't want to go back and have to do a bunch of grinding. I'm fat and lazy, and I don't like to grind a whole lot. This one here, I've left alone completely. Again, you know, if anything, and I made these with a number 2, which might have been a little aggressive as far as melting this top edge when you're talking about a cut. This one here, I haven't done anything to. Matter of fact, I'm still kind of pecking some of the end product of the cut off of there. And so, you know, with the old burn bar, this is done with a track torch. Of course, you can see that it's like super smooth and near perfect. And now I want to make a cut across here and kind of redo that bevel by hand just to see how close I can get. As far as a straight line, I expect to be pretty good. But if I jump and skip around with my travel speed, you're going to see every one of those drag line marks in there. You know, if I'm making this cut and I sneeze, you'll be able to see it for sure. That was funny. So I've switched back to a number 1 tip. I've set my pressures at 7 pounds acetylene, 35 pounds oxygen. I don't have any slag. I got one little dink hanging on right back down here. You know, obviously I'm not as smooth as the old track torch, but gee whiz, I think I could weld that. It's got a good straight line here. You can see a little bit of the depressions in here. I haven't looked at it close under light. Yeah, you can see them. Looks like a human made that cut. In any event, you know, pressures, travel speed, clean the mill scale off, you know, wear the proper safety gear. Now there are times that I'll cut on some fairly light stuff, or I know it's clean and I'm back away from it. Anytime I'm getting ready to cut, and I'll tell you a story, this happened. I'm wearing safety glasses, goggles, and a clear face shield, and I'm cutting heavy circles, and I'm clear upside down with my circle burning thing, and I'm getting ready to cut this big biscuit out of a piece of heavy steel, and I get a piece of mill scale in my eye, hot mill scale. How does that happen? Safety glasses, goggles, and a face shield, and it happens. I go to the eye doctor, and this guy's like chewing me out. He's got me in the old chair there with the Dremel tool going about 30,000 RPM with a carbide bit, and he's getting ready to stick it in my eye, and he's chewing me out that I'm not wearing anything to protect myself. Man, I'm wearing triple layer, and I still get it in there. I've had them stick on my lip and my neck, and so you got to be mindful of hot mill scale and a lot of the safety stuff. A while ago, we were getting ready, I was changing out torches between the track torch and the hand torch here, and when I changed them out, turned the cylinders on, this regulator, I turned the cylinders on, didn't have any pressure, and the line pressure gauge went to like 30. It just jumped up in here to the red arc, so this obviously, and it doesn't take me long to look at it, I'm taking it out of service. There's nothing you can do about it. This diaphragm is in here bleeding by. You do not ever want to get acetylene pressured higher than 15 PSI. I don't even like to get it up around 10. I'll run it about 10 when I'm running a big heating nozzle, rosebud type, but that's about it. I just don't get it up there that high. So yeah, this thing's out of service. I will send this in. I'm not going to mess around with it. In any event, a couple of demonstrations, straight cuts with a big number 2 for making speed. It came out okay. I barely melted that top edge. The other one, I went just a bit quicker. Same thing, I left my drag lines in there. This is, you know, okay. I don't know. I just have to get smoother with it. In any event, you can make some quality cuts. Mind your tip size, your material thickness, the mill scale, your pressures, and your travel speed, and you'll be cutting way better than me. I hope this helps out. If you have any questions and we can help you with anything, please contact us. Thanks for watching Weld.com. I'm Bob Moffett with Cali College.